Basic psychology. The working memory model. Sarah, have you heard about the working memory model?
No, I haven't. What's that?
It's a model that explains how our short-term memory works. The working memory model consists of multiple stores, including the central executive, phonological loop, visuospatial sketchpad, and episodic buffer.
That sounds complicated. Can you explain it in simpler terms?
Sure. The central executive is like the boss that coordinates the other stores. The phonological loop stores speech-based information, while the visuospatial sketchpad stores visual information. The episodic buffer integrates information from all the stores and long-term memory.
Interesting. How does the central executive work?
The central executive has limited capacity and directs attention and resources towards particular tasks. It receives information from the senses or long-term memory and works on it. The slave systems, phonological loop, and visuospatial sketchpad can also be used as temporary storage systems to free up capacity within the central executive.
Wow, I had no idea our memory worked like that. How does the articulatory phonological loop work?
The articulatory phonological loop processes speech-based information and preserves its order within the phonological store. The articulatory control process is used to rehearse and store verbal information from the phonological store through a form of maintenance rehearsal. It has limited capacity determined by the amount of information that can be spoken out loud in 2 seconds.
I see. And how about the visuospatial sketchpad?
The visuospatial sketchpad processes visual information and consists of the relationship between things and perception of movement. It can be further subdivided into a visual cache and an inner scribe. The visual cache stores visual material on color and form, while the inner scribe deals with spatial relationships, rehearsal, and the transfer of information from the visual cache to the central executive.
That's fascinating. And what about the episodic buffer?
The episodic buffer works as an extra buffer that integrates information from all 3 main systems as well as long-term memory. It has limited capacity and maintains time sequencing recording events as they happen and transferring this information into long-term memory. The working memory model evaluation. The working memory model is a theory that explains how our memory works. However, there are some weaknesses in the model. For example, little is known about the central executive, which is the main component of the model.
Why is that a weakness?
Well, there is evidence suggesting that the central executive may not be a single element. And there may be other components that the working memory model is unable to explain.
That makes sense. What other weaknesses are there?
The model is also unable to explain how musical memory works and how the link between working memory and long-term memory works. Additionally, studies that have tested for the WMM lack mundane realism.
What evidence supports the model?
PET scans have shown different parts of the brain become activated when doing visual and verbal tasks, suggesting the phonological loop and visuospatial sketchpad are separate systems supported by biological evidence. Also, studies have demonstrated the existence of the visuospatial sketchpad and the limited capacity of the visuospatial sketchpad.
That's interesting. What else have researchers found?
Clower and Zhao provided support for the visual cache and inner scribe, suggesting that both were separate components, with the visual cache dealing with color and form and the inner scribe dealing with spatial relationships.